Good morning, Ashley. It's Aaron Levine, LG Insurance Agency. We are going to record a virtual edition of the Who You Work With Matters podcast. And I've got my friend Ashley Napier here from Solomon Strategic Advisors. We're going to join and talk about a topic that you posted on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, and it was about listening with intent. Now, listening with intent and recording a podcast or being a host is probably the hardest thing to do because then we'd sit here with way too many seconds of silence in between our conversation, but I'm going to do my best to listen with intent to our conversation. But because we're recording it and putting it on YouTube and all other socials, I think we're going to be able to dive back into this if we need to and re-listen to this conversation. And I can't wait to share it with anybody and everybody in the business community going into a great 2025. Super excited. I've already got Key West 2025 on the calendar. I hope you got your invite and are coming back again because that's always a great weekend with some of the best insurance agents in the country. Besides the fun, we also get a whole heck of a lot of learning out of it. So thanks for coming and hanging out. So Ashley, give me a little bit about your background, because I know you come from an insurance space and how you got into the executive advisor space.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Aaron, for having me. I am excited to be here. So I spent about a decade in healthcare, and then I went to college as an adult, and I took a couple of years off to finish my undergrad. And whenever I graduated with my undergrad degree, I knew that I wanted to help people, but I wasn't exactly sure how. And I had a mentor that led me into the insurance space. And so I've been in the insurance industry for eight or 9 years. And I started out as a salesperson. So I have an undergrad in sales and marketing. So it's marketing with a minor in sales. And I knew that I knew I wanted to help people. And so he led me to the insurance industry. I started as a producer, and I made my way into leadership. But whenever I joined the insurance industry, I kept meeting people I was trying to build my network, and I kept meeting people that were dissatisfied. Like, they were frustrated with what they did. They were frustrated with who they worked with. They didn't like their jobs. They didn't want to go to work. They were looking for new places to
You
go.
talking about agents or you're talking about other business owners here?
I'm just talking about other business owners. I also met agents too, but I was meeting a lot of like bankers, CPAs, insurance agents, attorneys, financial advisors. I mean, like, really anybody that worked in a business, I was meeting them. I thought that they were potential business people I could do business with or referral sources.
Sure.
And I sat down with people, and a few things I uncovered. One is that I really struggled with listening. And two, people really didn't like what they did, or they didn't like who they worked with.
Okay. So
And
you
so,
struggled with listening because people didn't have good stories to tell,
no,
or
I was so
you were
excited to talk
too
about myself.
you were too anxious and you wanted to talk about yourself, right?
Yeah.
One of my phrases that I use often is people like to listen with their mouths, instead of with their ears, right? Like, please stop cutting me off. I was talking first. Like,
Ah, yeah, absolutely. So I was that way. And then I had my mentor continued to work with me. And so two things I said I noticed is I um knew that people were disgruntled and I talked too much. So I tried to like start to learn like how to have better question asking.
okay.
And then I started to figure out that like there's something going on with people. So in 2020, I enrolled in a master's program, and I enrolled in executive coaching and consultation. And I wanted to be a business coach because I had been hearing this for a while. People didn't like what they did. I
Right.
got better at asking questions. I got better at listening. And then I went to a graduate program and learned how to ask even better questions. So I was pretty good in sales. I got really anxious. I think the thing that you keyed in on was like anxiety. Anxiety drove
Mhm.
me to talk quite a bit. And I already had learned in my undergrad how to ask good questions. It was the anxiety that was compelling me to like run my mouth.
But that's not something you learn in school. Well, maybe I guess you can, some things can be identified as triggers and why, and I've noticed that through my experience that I try to talk less because then people get nervous and then they have to talk more, right?
Yeah.
It goes into if we're talking Chris Voss, right? Tactical empathy and some of their hostage negotiator training. It's like you leave silence for like 9 seconds and the other person's just going to start going because they can't handle it any longer, right? So
Yeah.
it's it's fun to play around with some of those tools to let there be that awkward silence on purpose and
Yeah.
then see what you can get out of it from the other side.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. So thank you for clarifying that. So it wasn't just something that I learned in school. It was like I was trying to increase my emotional intelligence. I was trying to increase my awareness. I didn't learn in school I had anxiety. It was like uncovering and a continuation of learning to figure out like why am I talking so much? Why is it when I get uncomfortable in conversations, I I just blurt things. I don't really blurt them out. I just didn't stop talking. And through learning about character, through learning about behaviors, through learning about asking questions, and then like doing something with my anxiety, which for me was like walking and
Mhm.
exercise
Love that.
and journaling and breathing, then I learned that I can do a better job at being present and asking questions and listening, doing a better job at listening. So it wasn't, you're right. It wasn't like, hey, in school, I just learned that I had anxiety. I'd known it all
No, because
along.
we all have anxiety and
Do
it
something
takes
with it.
you need to be a certain point in your life to be willing to figure out what's next and how to deal with it. Like you said, going, walking and breathing, right? We all are guilty of it. And, you know, I like to I'll go for walks in the afternoon if I can go for 30 or 45 minutes. Usually I have a book in my ears or I'm on the phone, but just getting out and doing the act of walking for an extended period of time, even if I'm on the phone the entire time with clients, prospects, employees, whatever it is, I still find the relief that I get from, getting off the desk for a little while. So
Yeah.
there's certain things that can certainly help us calm down in those cases. But then it goes back to let's take it to the what started this conversation, the listening with intent. I don't know if walking is going to help me listen, but it's gonna help control the rest of the dopamine hit in your brain to make sure you're functioning appropriately.
Yeah. So there's something called, now I'm not an occupational therapist. I'm not a therapist, but there's something called proprioceptive input that like if you do something with your big muscles, then it gives a release of some sort of chemical that helps you calm down, maybe dopamine. So it wouldn't surprise me if walking does actually make you a better listener because it releases something within your body. So
Right.
I would advocate for people who have trouble listening to go for a walk before you have to have a
Now, is
conversation.
that the treadmill desk, or is it like you have to get your ass outside and actually go for a walk? Because I know if I bought one of those treadmill desks, I would not be using it, right? I can hit the button on this desk and stand up right now, but I'm not. I'm sitting. When I'm looking at the screens, I feel more focused when I'm sitting as opposed to trying to do another activity. Like, if I'm reading and talking and doing whatever else, watching emails pop up on the other screen, I can't add another activity to it. But when I can get outside and walk, then I can do that with one other activity. I just can't add chewing gum in there.
Chewing gum. I don't know. I would love to be able to say it's one thing or another, but I would wonder if it has to do with the person. But I do know that like proprioceptive input is like using your big muscle groups. So it could be like wall squats. It could just be like flexing your thigh muscles or like flexing your biceps or like chewing gum is one. So you say it's funny, you say you can't do all those things at once. Sometimes that does help. Like flexing our muscles, it
Right.
helps like calm us down.
It makes sense. I mean, that's what I'm doing under the table is I'm flexing my legs. But anyway, we're getting weird now.
Well, yeah,
So
okay, Aaron, way to get weird with this. The point is like it allows you to be present in the moment. And so there was a couple of things that I learned with like, I wasn't a good listener. And so another thing that I did was I wrote down the thoughts that came to my head that I wanted to blurt out. So if I had a question that I wanted to ask, I carried around this like little book with me. It's not this one, but it was like a little book, a little moleskin. And whenever I would meet with somebody, if they said something that I wanted to blurt out, I'd write it down real quick and then I
Right.
would get back into the conversation. Because one of the reasons I blurted it out was because I was afraid of not saying it. I was afraid of forgetting it and moving on. So I'd
I love
write it down and pull it back out at the end, and then I'd ask some of my questions.
I mean, that's a great way to do it. This way you're not going to forget, right, what you were intending to say. And it might not be, you might not need that anymore because they covered that anyway, without you having to interrupt them. I love that concept of writing it down so you don't forget instead of blurting it out so you don't forget, but then you've already forgotten something else because you were too busy waiting for that cue to open your mouth and speak. But anyway, so let's get into Solomon. So when did you join Solomon as an executive advisor and move out of the insurance space?
Yeah, good listening, Aaron, because I forgot that we started to talk about that. So I'm actually still in the insurance space. I work with an agency as the director of organizational leadership, and that's just like leadership coaching. I'm just doing some people work in there. I recognized a couple of years ago that I really have to have a lot of help reading insurance policies and selling insurance policies. Not a detailed gal, but I am a people gal. But I wasn't made for that. So I joined Solomon at the end of last year, beginning of this year. I don't remember exactly when, and stepped into a coach and advisor role. So
Mhm.
my dream from back in 2019, something that I saw back in 2016, finally came to fruition, and I'm able to step into agencies and into organizations and help leaders understand themselves better, increase their emotional intelligence, increase their awareness for other people. I would like to say I help with like skill set within the insurance agencies, or the insurance industry or within any industry, but that's not for me. I'm not here to teach a skill set. I'm here to teach a people skill, a self-awareness and others awareness.
Right. I love that. I mean, that's super helpful. It can go across any different industry, but with your knowledge of the insurance space, not going into the skills and the how to, right? There's so many other good coaches in our space that are really, really good at getting that technical ability
Yeah.
and helping our teams thrive and grow. But it's, you working with the leadership to work on the listening with intent and helping to build out strategy, I think is super, super helpful. So I'm going to shout out really quick, solomonsa.com, and you can find Ashley in the Our Team button. And then you also have there's a leadership guide that is free to download. It's not even like blocked by an enter your email address here. So I was just able to download it and I haven't been tracked across the internet yet. But I think it's a cute, that's not the right word. It's a nice guide, of some things to start thinking about that leaders would want to think about with respect to habits, direction, and being present, which I think is great. And obviously, this is the goal of this would be to take you to the next level, to reach out to you or another coach to see where we can go. And I'm currently working potentially with an EOS coach in the near future. I've been having some conversations with a friend of mine locally who is an EOS coach. I've read two of Gino's books, Rocket Fuel and Traction. I'm reading another one right now called Shine. I don't know if you've seen that one. That's more about the being present with yourself and getting out of your own way, finding happiness and, excuse me, usually don't wind up choking on the camera right now.
Well, I was going to say, whenever so I was in a leadership position. So I was a chief operating officer of some insurance agencies and a principal. And we used Traction. I really liked it. The
Okay.
thing that I didn't understand at the time when we used it, so this is probably back in maybe 2020, whenever we launched Traction within an agency, was
Hmm.
that it assumes the best of people. It assumes you already have the best and healthiest of people. And I didn't understand that. And it allows you to grade them.
Right.
I remember
I don't
the
know if it
plus
assumes
minus
that, but
plus.
I think it makes the assumption that if you don't have the best of it, you're going to replace that person with somebody else. Right.
Yeah, it does. And like, what is the most expensive thing to do? To replace somebody.
Right.
Now, my thought and this is not listening, it's not about listening, but it kind of is like, how can we equip our people, understand them, better our communication, and lead better so we don't have to replace them? So they don't, that cost with replacing an employee is not so, is not there. Now, I'm not advocating for keeping all employees, but I am advocating for like understanding ourselves, understanding others, developing ourselves, developing others before we usher them to the door.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And this goes into right, my question of what would be your, I don't want to say remedy, but your quick recommendation for anybody, right? And just that one short video or blog that you posted on LinkedIn about listening with intent, got my brain thinking, and I wanted to sit down with you and uncover it a little bit more. But what's the first step, right, for somebody in a leadership position to realize that maybe they're not listening with intent, or maybe their team needs to do a better job of it, so coach me through this one scenario here.
Hmm. I wish that there was just one because this would make this easier. Um, but I think a tool that I would pull out is a tool that we call the support challenge matrix. And
Okay.
it says that liberation, so opportunity and empowerment happens when we have high support and high challenge. If we have low support and high challenge, then we have dominating tendencies. We've got fear, manipulation. If we have high support, low challenge, then we have protection, it's mistrust and entitlement happens, or we've got abdication, low support, low challenge. We're just checked out. And we don't accidentally fall into liberation. We don't accidentally fall into high support, high challenge. And so if a leader is saying, I think I would assume that they're not sure exactly what it's like to be on the other side of them. They're not really sure if they're listening with intent. They're not really sure if liberation is happening. I would say ask the people around you with some objective language. What is it like to be on the other side of me? Am I intentional or am I accidental? Am I proactive or am I reactive? Am I providing support, high support and high challenge? Am I moving into liberation? And if not, like, what can I do to change that? What can I do to be a better leader to more people?
Man, that's a scary thought, because I don't know if I want to go and ask half my staff to that question about me. I mean,
It is a scary
that's
thought.
that's a scary thought. But, you know, realizing the truth, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Now, at the same time, you want people to respond truthfully and, I'm going to say with love, right? Like, you know, for the good, better of the good of it all, because not everybody's going to respond with full truth because of that fear factor, right? Well, if I tell him honestly that he's an asshole and he doesn't support me, and I don't care if we get the job done, then, well, then is there gonna be some form of retaliation, right? So there's always that fear factor. And obviously, if I'm leading with, fear, I'm gonna get fear in return. If I ask that, as opposed to, leading with love and intent and leadership and that kind of sense. So, really, gosh, I want to sit back and think about that.
Yeah, yes. And am I when I'm asking for people's feedback, am I listening to respond or am I listening to learn?
Mhm.
And I tell my kids this, you I am already experiencing you. And the only difference is me vocalizing it or not. And so if a leader is saying they are apprehensive to learn what their employees have to say, it's like all we're doing is putting it out there and it creating awareness because they already believe what they believe. It
Right.
doesn't change how they feel because they vocalized it. Now, what it can do is if they vocalize it and then the leader doesn't do a darn thing about it, then we can get into trouble. Now,
Right.
you could say on the front end, hey, I'm not sure I can change. I want to if it would be helpful for people, but like if you set it up in a way that when you get the feedback that they're not expecting a radical change, that's so hard for people to do. It really takes a lot of energy and effort and time and like processes and things to actually start changing.
Yeah, I think that goes with any system, right? If we're in the EOS system or if we're in the Solomon system or any of the tools that you're using, it all takes time and it all takes acting with intent at the same time of, we use that intent word. It's, acting and doing the work that has to be done to create those habits of change. I asked you early on when we were getting this set up, what were some of the books that you read that you really want to share from 2024? And well, one of them was a habit book, right? Was there
High Performance Habits
High
by
Performance Habits? There you go.
Brendan Burchard.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that book. Because I didn't read
So,
it, so I'm gonna have to download it probably in the next, 5 minutes.
oh my gosh, it's fantastic. So it says it Brendan Burchard studies high performing people. And
Hmm.
he has in his book the different steps that, or the different components that make somebody high performing. So he goes and he studies them and he says, this is what they do. And then he says, this is what you should be doing. Um, and I would love to sit here and like debrief all of that with you. The book is it's pretty big. I
Okay.
actually started it on audio and then I moved into the paper so I could look at the questions and
Got
start
it.
plugging them in. But I think a lot of it is mindset. So that also reminds me of a book that I didn't tell you about. And your prelim question was Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it says, like, do we have a fixed mindset or do we have a growth mindset? And I think before we can start something like high performance habits, we really need to look at our mindset. Are we able to change? Are we capable of changing? Do we want to change? And if not, then we need to look at like our fixed mindset and why we have that. And then if we're open to change, if we have a growth mindset, then I think that we can move into something like high performance habits that gives us the recipe or components of the recipe to move to high performance.
I love that. Sometimes I'll think that I have a growth mindset, right? But then there's other times I'll tell you that I'm not coachable.
Yeah. Yeah, you've told me that.
I've told you that I'm not coachable, but at the same time, I want to have a growth mindset, right? So where are the two, where does it all tie together? And where does the truth lie behind that, right? And it's just a matter of, you know, timing and motivation to get to that next level, which also one of the other books you put out there was Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy was 10x is easier than 2x, right? That exponential growth. Are you ready for exponential growth?
Yeah.
Or do you want to maintain your linear growth, right? Any of these systems are going to want to help you get exponential growth. And because that's why they sell them to us, because it's going to be like, we're going to 10x our businesses. And it's a great concept, the 10x and the exponential growth. And it's totally doable, but it comes with being coachable, being able to work with your team, expand your team, and get your team on board with what's next. I think is all super important. Like sometimes I'm like 20% growth, linear growth year over year, kind of good. Not really that bad of a thing to be growing by 20%
Oh,
year
yeah.
over year. Like, but can we find a way to get to that 200% growth? Can we take it to a whole nother level is is the challenge. And sometimes when I say I'm not coachable, well, I'm stuck in that linear mindset at the same time, and I acknowledge it, I know it. It's just a matter of, putting in that work and, having I spend a lot of family time, right? I take off, I drive my kids as much as I can and spend as much time as I can with them. Because you read a lot of stories about some of these super successful types that you know, don't have any balance. They don't have any family time. They're consumed 100%. Even if they're physically present, they're emotionally checked out, right? When it comes to family time for some of these ultra high performers in some of these cases. Ray Dalio principles makes it very evident that he works over a 90-hour work week for the last 75 years, right? Elon Musk, any of these guys, they are all they've put in that time to get the business to be in an excess state versus having some balance in it. So, where do you fit in on that spectrum with respect to, your coaching model?
As far as like how you spend time, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, about how you spend time and how you would coach somebody if somebody says, I want a 10x.
I
And
see.
they want to get to that next level. Well, are you going to put in the time for that, or are you going to bring the people in, right? And this is where we talk about the who's, and my more preferred book from Dan Sullivan was Who Not How.
Oh yeah.
Enjoyed that the most. That was my favorite of the three: The Gap in the Gain, 10x, and Who Not How. Who Not How was my favorite, right? The who's. And that was one of the motivations behind this podcast, was really celebrating people, um, and understanding that we've relied on mentors and parents our entire lives. And as leaders, we need to have the right people in the right seats to be able to help us move to that next level, whether it's linear 20% growth or it's 10xing that growth and taking it to a whole other level. Sorry, I just totally hijacked my question to you.
No, the Who Not How is one of my absolute favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
What is it? Never Split the Difference and Who Not How. Those are probably my most recommended books. How I coach people. So I tend to coach people with a lot of questions. I think that when leaders, like if you're looking at executive leadership and ownership, really do think that you have what you need in you to be the best version. And sometimes you just need help uncovering it. Whenever I'm looking at behavior change, I'm really looking at their character. And so character to me is like, do I think I need people? Do I have my own identity and opinions? Can I hold black and white realities together? Do I have an internal judge that is helping me? Do I have perfectionist tendencies? Can I make goals and achieve them? Do I feel like I'm above authority or below authority? Do I feel mutual with people? So I'm really digging into those aspects whenever I'm coaching. I'm looking at what happened in your past that's informing your present. Do you know who you are? Do you know what it's like to be on the other side of you? Do you know the influences in your life that help shape who you are today? Do you know your personalities? Do you know how you come across to other people? Do you know your communication style? Like whenever you're talking, you're usually looking for a need to be met. And then whenever you're receiving communication back, do you get the thing that you are looking for? I look at how people spend their time. So I wish that I could say like there's one simple recipe, that there's like one thing, I put them through this conveyor belt, and then they start with me and then they pop out the other side and they're amazing. And there's one path, but it's not. People are complex, they're dynamic, they all have their own things. And so it depends on what they're trying to achieve is what I focus on and what we work on. But a lot of it is like self-awareness and others' awareness.
So it comes to self-awareness and others' awareness, right? So when I tell you that I'm not coachable, what does that mean to you? What do you get out of that statement from me?
There's a couple of things. One is, Ashley, I don't want you to bother. Like, leave me alone. I don't want to work on this. That's one thing that I
Okay.
might think. I'm not coachable is there are things in me that I don't want to bring up and talk about. I don't want to talk about them with you. That takes too much time. Like, why slow down to work on me whenever I've got business objectives to achieve? I think about I'm not coachable I do think like a fixed mindset, but it really is like why is it a fixed mindset? Now I'm assuming, right? I don't actually know that you have a fixed mindset. These are just like thoughts that would go through my head. Do you have now I'm just like uncovering all the stuff that I think. Sorry,
I love,
Aaron.
I love
But I would think, do you fear like getting close to somebody and them seeing some like darker parts of you? Do you um not want to work on a goal and achieve it? Like, do you have issues with setting goals and achieving them? I think I can go on for a little bit. These are considerations that I would have in the beginning, and I would ask questions to like dig down into that.
I mean,
Do you know
I think
why?
these are all great. And do I know why? I have my own ideas as to why. I'm not going to share them
That's fine. Yeah,
right
please
now.
don't.
But I am going to go back as soon as we publish this video, and I never watch or listen to any of my podcasts. I can't stand watching and listening to myself, right? So take that for whatever it is. But I do not watch and review. I'm going to go and watch this last 4 minutes, and I'm going to rethink about this question, and we'll have a private conversation about it, and maybe I'll share it publicly. If it comes down to that, maybe I will share it publicly. I'm not afraid to share it publicly, but I'm not going to answer it right now. It's something that I want to listen to again and put some thought into, and then I will share with you in private, or I will share with you publicly again. So.
Yeah, we'll see. One of the things that you also said, like, would now make me think, does he not want to grow because he's afraid of not getting it perfect? Like that would be one thing that I would wonder.
That's an interesting one. That
All
that
right, go back and listen, and
that
then
hits.
we'll debrief.
I'm gonna go back and listen. Listen, we've been rambling on for quite some time, and I really enjoyed this conversation. And I know we could certainly go on for another half an hour, but we're gonna have to do this again. We're gonna have to find another topic to dive in on. And this whole conversation started with listening with intent. We didn't even hit, even though we mentioned the name Chris Voss, we didn't even hit the tactical empathy piece of listening, and where to take your listening to that next level to create those connections, which also helps people.
Oh yeah. Next time we talk about, I call it attunement. He calls it tactical empathy, but it's
Okay.
like I'm labeling what I think I hear.
Yep.
And it is a power skill. Power skill.
I've always wanted to go to one of his multi-day events, and usually it's calendar related issues because it's not a financial thing or a time thing or a want thing. I think it's typically a calendar thing because they're not offered very often. I've got to do a better job of finding one and spending those couple days with that crew, because that would be an amazing workshop to attend, one of those Chris Voss hostage negotiating leadership seminars. Anyway, I'll have to get an affiliate code while we're at it and make sure we can resell it to people and get some commission on it. See, that's where my brain goes. But anyway, Ashley, thanks so much for hanging out with me on the podcast today. I can't wait to get this released, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Hold on.